Okay, my name is Paul Nelis from the Scottish Community Development Centre. Uh, we're putting this video together to talk about local place plans, a development which has happened over the last couple of years, and really we kind of feel this is an opportunity for communities to come together to highlight what's important to them and their priorities, and also to kind of plan, and collectively make a plan about how they're going to use spatial resources within the actual community itself. So what I would like to say is that we will be talking about local place plans as a way of prioritising issues that are important to the community, and to help get the priorities that they think are important onto a statutory footing, and also help in terms of shaping service delivery. So we are positive about local place plans and the impact that they can actually have. We want to be realistic about what can be achieved by a local place plan, and so we're going to give examples from across the country about where we are with those. And again, it's an emerging piece of policy, and we'll talk about the numbers that we're seeing across the country in a short while. And we'll also highlight how local place plans can benefit the wider community by targeting inequalities, thinking about those less heard voices and the importance of getting them involved in discussions about community priorities, so that the things that impact on their lives can actually be realised and developed in a way that's going to suit them going forward. So there's lots there to talk about, but before we go on, let's introduce our speakers. Over to you, Beth.
Thanks, Paul. So yeah, I'm Beth Landon. I'm a community development officer working for one of the third sector interfaces across Scotland. There's one for each local authority area in Scotland, and we support the third sector, so community groups, social enterprises and volunteering. For the last year, I've been focusing on supporting local place plans in a pilot in the eastern area of the Borders. So although at the moment there are none registered on the Scottish Borders Council website, and we've got about 9 which are looking like they're going to be developed in the near future and registered in the near future in the Scottish Borders. So yeah, over to you then, Nick.
Hi folks, so I'm Wright. I'm the town planner amongst the three of us, and I'm self-employed. I'm based near Glasgow, but I work all around the place, and I've been involved in 5, I think, local place plans which have been registered so far, and involved in another half a dozen others which are in progress at the moment. And before local place plans came in, I worked on a couple of the pilot ones with the Scottish Government as well. So that's my experience and background.
Okay, so hopefully between us we'll have enough information that's going to help people make sense of local place plans as we go forward. Okay, so let's start off with a first question. Beth, you wanted to ask that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So my first question is for you, Nick. Community-led planning isn't a new thing. As you know, community groups have been developing community action plans for a long time. Now, there's been quite a lot of talk around Scotland about it being a different thing, and local place plans, community action plans being 2 separate plans with different purposes. But in the Borders, we're taking a one plan approach where you can have a community action plan which meets the requirements for registration as a local place plan, so it has some spatially mapped elements in it. What are your thoughts on that, and of evolving a community action plan to become a local place plan?
Wow, good question. So, well, first of all, if a community is starting from scratch, then I'm hugely supportive of the one plan approach. It just makes perfect sense to me. Really, it's common sense. From the community's point of view, people won't want to engage in multiple consultations and plans if they don't need to. So keeping it simple makes sense. And from a practical point of view, why have multiple plans and more cost and complexity if you could just do one? So I think the principle of doing a one plan approach is absolutely spot on. And we can delve into some of the ins and outs of that a little bit more in the other in the other 5 questions. But what if a community has already got a community action plan and they're thinking of evolving it into a local place plan? Well, the benefits I've heard from community groups themselves, and I'm thinking of 2 or 3 I've been involved with. So when Paul and I were working in Strath-Eric and Foyers, south of Loch Ness, they'd done their community action plan, and they said they wanted to do a local place plan to complement it. So we kind of nicely challenged them about, why do you need that? What's the point? And they thought about it carefully, and they said, well, actually what we'd like to do is we'd like to help our local villages, each one, understand how the community action plan will sort of land on the ground within each village. So how the village might look. Will it have new houses or not? Will it have a new play area? What will the changes be from the community action plan? And the local place plan was seen as a way of getting folk in each village to engage in that process, to imagine how their village would look. And that seemed to work quite well. So that was what the community said they would find it useful for. And the other reason that I've heard from groups on the ground is that local place plans have a statutory role, whereas community action plans don't. So even if a community group might have planning issues, which it wants to have the benefit of the statutory weight of the local place plan. But a couple of communities I've been working with, so the Black Isle and the Garnock Valley as well in Ayrshire, community groups there have both said, well, even though we know that the statutory weight of the local place plan only applies to planning issues, we'd still like to have the local place plan because we think it will support other things as well. So let me give an example. The Black Isle, their local place plan is about to be registered in the next couple of days, we hope, but it's already been approved by the council, separate process from the registration. The council have already approved it and have adopted the plan to use as a tool to inform and support decision making about the Black Isle. So that's written into council minutes. So there's already a bit of extra weight there that has come from it being a local place plan, which they might not have got had it just been a community action plan. So those are my thoughts from what I've heard from groups on the ground. So I guess it's not just up to me. Beth and Paul, have you got any other thoughts you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, well, Beth.
Go on. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I mean, so the planning circular, which sort of there's a Scottish Government's guidance on to community groups on how to approach local place plans. It seems to sort of intentionally leave it pretty flexible for communities. So I think you can interpret that in lots of ways, and I've seen it written on some council websites that it's got a kind of list of what counts as development and what doesn't, and sometimes that's sort of put across as what you can and can't include. But if you read the circular carefully, it actually is just about how you present things in your plan. It's not saying you can't include them. And yeah, absolutely, it seems a much better approach to have one plan which covers the whole area, which can have some spatially mapped elements. I like the way you put it, how it lands on the ground, but also has some other aspects for community action, like maybe community events, or they want a community website or a newsletter, or things which aren't sort of tangible on the ground things. It makes sense to include those as well. And as you say, there isn't a mechanism as such, a statutory mechanism for registering community action plans. Some local authorities seem to, I think the planning authorities, which are national parks, they seem to have encouraged community action plans and register those, but there's no requirement for on local authorities to register community action plans. So how do you get those on the desk of the authority, the local authorities? And we have this mechanism now, so why not use that to get all of your community's aspirations sort of registered and up there? to feed into other plans which aren't just spatial planning. That seems to totally make sense to me. And the other thing is that isn't so fussed about plans. They want action. Generally, they want to see things happening. And this is quite a long game of influencing spatial planning, influencing the local development plan and that sort of thing. And there's no guarantee of any action on anything that the community has put in unless the community does it themselves. So for them to include their community action plan, that gives them some agency, I think, in the actual delivery of their plan. Yeah, that's some thoughts from me. What about you, Paul?
Definitely just echoing some of your points, that this is the first time that communities will be able to have put their plans into a statutory sort of footing and get that recognised. We you know, even if you're submitting a local place plan, which has there's a very particular way of setting that out, you know, whether there might be boundaries and setting that out in a map form, but you would also accompany that local place plan with your action plan as well, which might include other areas which maybe require council input. So it's a good way of flagging up that here is our action plan and here's the local place plan that goes along with it, you know. And you know, there are so many action plans which have been developed out with the vision of local authorities, and this is actually a good opportunity to bring those on board. There's so many plans that have been developed out with the vision of the health service and other enterprise agencies as well. This is maybe the start off of actually bringing those agencies into the discussion, you know, and you know, a wee bit more deeper, and you know, we don't know how the planners are going to view these plans come, you know, when future developments happen. But this is the first step of finding out, well, you know, you're doing this within our community. Have you looked at our local place plan? Have you looked at what are the priorities that we've set out, and what is the basis for this decision? You know, so there's a whole load of things that the local place plan will give voice to. The other thing that I would say is that it should help in terms of if the local place plan is done well, it should help identify some of the you know, the less heard voices within that as well. I know we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail, but it should be able to kind of bring their voices to the fore as well, you know. So everything gets elevated. That's probably my one takeaway from it, is that it kind of elevates a local place plan, a community action plan, you know, to the attention of a very powerful partner potentially.
Mm-hmm.